The music industry is a very interesting place. I've had the opportunity to do some work there, and let me tell you, some of it is very, very weird. Some of it is bizarre. Some of it, we could say, is demonic and satanic. And this video that we're going to get into is no different from that. When we examine Nicki Minaj discussing Future.
And that's how they're going to feel closer to him, because they're doing what they're hearing him rap about.
And some of the narratives that come out from this community that I can't think of another explanation, but this is intentionally there to, I believe, bring harm to people. So let's jump into this clip. This is Nicki Minaj sitting down with Joe Budden, podcaster Joe Budden.
If they like your music, they're listening to it over and over and over. It's programming. And they might try some of those things they hear you talk about. I remember I had a conversation with Future one time in the studio, and he said something that I will never forget. And he laughed while he said it. He was like, yeah, you know, people be thinking I'm really doing a lot of drugs because I rap about it all the time. But they don't even be knowing I'm a lightweight.
So you got Future talking about doing hard drugs, but confessing to Nicki Minaj that he's a lightweight. We also know, it's been documented, put the articles up on this when we edited, is Future was sober from drugs for a while and continued rapping about doing drugs after the fact. This tragically led to the influence of a young Juice WRLD getting on drugs and then later on meeting Future to discover that Future himself no longer did drugs. 50 Cent, one of the biggest artists of the 2000s, he's doing his tour now. Come to find out that the guy who was rapping, you know, go shawty, it's your birthday, we're going to drink champagne like it's your birthday, bottle full of bub, I got that E if you're into making love. That same 50 Cent was sober the entire time. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs. So artists are somehow incentivized, whether it's by these labels, the corporations, the people who are driving some of this stuff, to talk about things that they themselves aren't doing because, well, let's be honest, to operate at an elite level of output like a 50 Cent or like a Future, whether or not you think their music is good or not, just the sheer output and the sheer volume of output is very difficult to do while being a drug addict. All right, so let's see what Nicki Minaj got to say. What else?
I said, in my head, because there are a lot of people that are huge Future fans, for instance.
And a lot of people trying stuff because Future makes it sound cool.
And that's how they're going to feel closer to him, because they're doing what they're hearing him rap about. Not
Sheesh, man.
darkness.
It's crazy to hear her say these things. Because we could argue that the personification of her sexuality and that being used to sell records is very similar, right? And I'm curious to see if she feels about that in hindsight, right? Like, as a young woman, were you encouraged to rap more sexual and behave more sexual in order to get those same looks, right? So it's very fascinating hearing her talk about it. I mean, we could just argue that sex is a different.
Not knowing that he
ain't on it like that.
Not like that, no. So that's why it's, you know, it's important. But you can't fault an artist. See, that's the thing. Just because you say you are a role model doesn't mean you're telling someone you're bad. Even though we are role models, it's like, how can you tell a rapper you're bad because you rap about that?
You could tell how conflicted she sounds in this. And I too would feel conflicted. If I was her, I'd feel very conflicted. But the reality is this is what we call personal accountability. That whether somebody is a rapper, a TikToker, a YouTuber, a podcaster, we are responsible for the things that come out of our mouth, regardless of the incentive, regardless of the payday on the other side of glorifying things that are self-destructive. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. The need to be right sometimes for those in the content space, right? The need to self-indulge for those who are selling the type of music that she sold or Future sold. There's always going to be incentive to do the thing that is the most gratifying to people's natural urges. So I understand how she could feel conflicted, but we are ultimately accountable, and we will give an account. And we will give an account. Jesus said we will give an account for every idle word that comes out of our mouth.
And you didn't clarify in your music what, how much, what, you know. It's art. Okay, that would really, and I want to stress this because
we can't do that, Nicki Minaj, because the difference between this and watching The Sopranos or watching Goodfellas, or, because it kind of goes back to like gangster movies, Casino. The difference between that is most people, unless they're just completely stupid, know that I'm watching a movie. When we're listening to Future or listening to you, most people think this is their real life. This is who they really are, right? It takes a different degree of sophistication to understand that rappers, yes, are just like they're WWE characters. They're not. This isn't real to them. This to them is a movie. They are rapping a movie. But I don't think people view music and movies the same way. I think she would concede that point if we were having this conversation.
I know right now they're in court talking about how, their
lyrics,
right,
and their impact. Can we use them?
That's insane. Could you imagine if we held film directors accountable for all the fucking murders they put?
Yeah. So she gets into movies. CP said, I disagree. Scarface and gangster movies had a huge effect on us. Yeah, I mean, obviously movies and media have an effect. I'm not saying they don't have an effect. I'm saying I think we intrinsically know that, or we should know, that there's a spectrum of a difference when you're listening to a rapper and when you're watching Joe Pesci be a gangster on camera. But to your point, CP, I would concede that, especially at a young age, like, because I was watching that stuff as a kid too, right? I remember watching Casino at like 12, 13 years old. I would concede that, yes, especially at a younger age, it's hard to distinguish that. Now, I would say that's a fair point, but I still think it's different. I still think that what an artist or a rapper says is different than what an actor is doing. But to your point, I think both of them are can be negatively perceived. The difference is that Robert Downey Jr. doesn't walk around in an Iron Man suit when he's done filming. That's a great point. That's a great point. Joe Pesci doesn't continue walking around like a gangster after he's done with Casino. Neither does Robert De Niro. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Wow. Man, that's interesting. That is interesting. All right. We see, according to the Bible, that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask Him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when He answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used for my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.